It's that time again.
That's right, Yakko. It's time for another exciting episode of my incredibly popular series of Deadly Class reviews. Today's episode is Volume 3, The Snake Pit. Roll the intro. Last time I talked about Deadly Class Volume 7 like a big nerd, saying that it was my favorite in the whole series. Now we're going to talk about the volume that was my favorite before Volume 7 took that spot. Deadly Class Volume 3 is one of the most tense and gripping parts of this whole story. In this video, I will discuss all that I can possibly say about the story, then the characters, then the artwork for these 5 issues. Normally, I would say that you should watch my first video about Deadly Class so you're up to speed, but that video is pretty old and kinda whack, so I'm just gonna go over everything real quick again. Deadly Class is an Image comic series that ran from 2014 until 2022 when the series finished after 56 issues. It was written by Rick Remender and illustrated by Wes Craig. It's very widely considered one of the best series Image Comics has ever put out. It very quickly became one of my favorite series of all time, pretty much as soon as I read the volume we're going to talk about right now. It stars Marcus, a deeply traumatized and orphaned kid who gets invited to join an underground school that teaches other deeply traumatized kids how to be assassins. And it's underground as in no one is supposed to know about it, but it's also underground as in it literally takes place under the ground.
Welcome to the underground.
Marcus and his group of friends end up getting one of the students named Chico killed. Don't ask me why his name is Chico, okay? Just go with it. In order for this incident to not come to the attention of the headmaster of the school, Master Lin, they must hunt down the only other witness to this crime, Chester, which leads to an exciting shootout with him. After the intense showdown at the end of Volume 2, Chico's vindictive and ruthless family catch up to Marcus and his friends, and that's where Volume 3 starts. Let's go through the story first. Like I said, we pick up right as Chico's family has Marcus and his love interest Maria, as well as his best friend Willie at gunpoint. Another kid in Marcus's friend group, Lex, comes around the corner not knowing everything that's going on and gets insta-killed by Chico's family. Very sad, I know. Let's have a moment of silence for Lex. But Lex's death gave Marcus and Maria enough of a distraction to get away. Marcus and Maria might think they're home free, but they weren't counting on a cold-blooded killer hunting them down like defenseless rabbits. May I introduce to you, Chico's older brother, Braided Mustache Motorcycle Guy, and his sidekick, Mexican Sam Elliott. So Braided Mustache Motorcycle Guy goes after Marcus and Maria. This obviously doesn't go well for them, but Maria's tenacity and quick wit allowed them to temporarily escape the vengeful grasp of Chico's brother and gave them some downtime before they had to eventually meet each other again in a confrontation of grief-fueled hatred. Marcus hits them with a bus, and Braided Mustache Motorcycle Guy falls off a bridge and dies. A moment of silence for Braided Mustache Motorcycle Guy. Just when they think the battle's over, Mexican Sam Elliott comes out of nowhere and starts attacking Maria, but Marcus comes in to help and stabs him with a giant pole or something. Look, you can see it on the ground right here. That's called foreshadowing. But that still wasn't enough because the other members of Chico's family have caught up with them. They throw Marcus off the bridge that the late Braided Mustache Motorcycle Guy fell off too, and then they sedate Maria and take her away. I usually tell the whole story and do my analysis after, but I really gotta interrupt and tell you just how awesome issue 12 is. Everything I just said happened in one issue, and it was the single reason why this volume was my favorite for so long. Issue 12 was such an insane thrill ride that was compelling as it was brutal. Are you sensing a pattern here? But Marcus falls off the bridge and Willie comes in clutch mode with a truck full of garbage to help break Marcus's fall. Maria managed to somehow get out of the car she was being held in. I guess one of her heels had like a gas that makes you crash your car. So their car crashes and Maria finishes off the rest of Chico's family. They get back to the school and everything's a-okay. Maria goes to Master Lin in order to cover for Lex's death, but it turns out Master Lin already knows what really happened to Lex, and Maria starts to pass out from something in her tea. Holy cow, guys, it's Chico's mom! And hey, Braided Mustache Motorcycle Guy is alive. I take back that moment of silence. Let's have a moment of noise instead.
Welcome
play around. No, keep in mind,
For
I
the goodness
never
of
play
the
around
Lord,
with someone who isn't mature enough to play.
He has permitted me to suffer pain.
Don't are going.
In the next issue, we learn that Maria apparently left a note for Marcus, essentially Dear Johning him and explaining that she ran away and only got close to Marcus in order to make Chico jealous. This note was obviously staged by Chico's family or by Master Lin himself. We don't see Maria again for a pretty long while, implying that she was either killed or is being held prisoner by Chico's family. This note was given to explain her disappearance while ensuring that her friends don't try and go rescue her. Out of everyone in our primary friend group, Marcus is the one who takes this news the hardest. For the next 3 issues, we're going to see Marcus spiral into a mess of paranoia and self-destruction, careening toward his eventual death. Spoilers, by the way. Marcus not only gets the gut punch of Maria's disappearance, but also gets his heart shattered by Saya. Saya and Marcus had a thing going on even while he was dating Maria. If I ever talk about Volume 2, I'll have to mention how that was definitely one of the worst mistakes Marcus makes in his life. It's made even worse that Willie also confessed his feelings for Saya too. This love triangle between Willie and Marcus is what leads to her rejecting the both of them out of fear of driving a wedge in their friendship. The problem is that Marcus's loss of both Maria and Saya is what's going to lead to Marcus going off the deep end. Marcus feels betrayed by Maria and Willie and Saya and starts lashing out super hard, severing any remaining camaraderie they might have had. So Marcus loses the only friends he had, but quickly gets acquainted with a new girl in the story, Petra. They get pretty close, going to parties and stuff, and even gets a venereal disease from her. These are 15-year-olds, by the way.
Deadly Class was a great book.
Marcus not only starts thinking that Saya killed Maria, but also slips up and starts a rumor that Willie isn't as hardcore as he seems. Also, are these guys playing 2-player Punch-Out? Does he think he's controlling Mike Tyson? Both of these things turn Marcus's relationship with Saya and Willie from unfriendly to downright antagonistic. If all of this wasn't enough heat for Marcus to take, Victor, a pretty archetypical bully, comes up to Marcus and tells him if he doesn't turn himself or his associates in for the death of Chico and Lex, then he'll turn all of them in. So not only does he have to worry about Willie and Saya, but he also has this ticking time bomb in the form of Victor to worry about. Marcus decides that he's not turning anyone in, instead choosing to assassinate Victor on school property. This does not work out well for him. I don't know how, but Marcus misses Victor's head despite pointing the gun literally like 3 inches away from it. They chase each other down the halls, accidentally killing one of the teachers before rushing into the assembly that was called earlier. This assembly that Master Lin is holding is about final exams. The specifics of the final exams are more important in the next volume, so I won't really explain what they are, but that's pretty much where Volume 3 ends. Even though the beginning with this crazy chase scene and fight between Maria and Braided Mustache Motorcycle Guy was the main reason why this volume was my favorite for the longest time, and how this series became one of my favorites, I still think the drama and rising stakes that escalated throughout the next 4 issues were still intense and gripping. I mean, Marcus just has so much stuff getting piled onto him. More stuff than I even mentioned in my little recap just now. Marcus makes so many bad decisions on his own accord in this volume, but you can't help but feel bad that this kid just can't catch a break. It makes for such compelling tension that really makes you want to keep reading and see how this crescendo of misery is going to play out. I really like how much we focus on Marcus in this volume, but I do feel like everyone else's involvement had to be sacrificed. Marcus drifts away from his friends during this volume, so they're obviously important to the story. I just think it was a missed opportunity that we never really got to see how Maria's disappearance affected anyone else in Marcus's friend group. It kind of seems like Marcus is the only one who cares, which doesn't make sense at all. I'll talk more about this in the character section, but the point is that I feel like Marcus shouldn't be the only one who doesn't buy that Maria would just disappear out of the blue. But instead, his manic paranoia is made to look even crazier by the fact that no one else seems to even be thinking about Maria. But besides my problem with that, I really do love the way problem after problem after problem is presented to Marcus, creating such an interesting view into this extremely flawed but ultimately well-intentioned character. But again, I'll talk more about that in the characters portion. One thing I've yet to mention about how Rick Remender writes his characters is that they are really articulate. Like, to the point where they stop sounding like regular people speaking and sounding like Rick is trying to impress the audience with how intelligently he can write dialogue. That probably doesn't make sense, but I think if you've read this series, you know what I'm talking about. Like, take this scene in the diner with Saya and Marcus, for example. They're discussing music like Anthony Fantano is debating himself. I know what 15-year-olds sound like, and this is not how they talk about music they like.
Level 5 got Riz, Livy done rizzing up Baby Grom.
But I think the story is really good. It's one of the best when looking at just Marcus himself. Let's talk about the characters now. This is always the hardest part of making these videos because I actually have to like think about what I'm reading instead of just describing it. I know, pretty unheard of for us comic YouTubers. Let's start with Marcus since he obviously has the most going on. Once Maria disappears, the rest of the story feels like it's from the point of view of Marcus, so we get a lot of insight into how he's reacting to everything that's happening. Marcus's initial reaction to Maria's supposed abandonment is by convincing himself that he knew the whole time that her affection was fabricated, that their relationship was never real to begin with. Marcus feels like any relationship is gonna end badly, but wants to go through with them anyway as a vain distraction. So he goes for Saya as a rebound off of Maria. Saya's rejection seemed to have thrown Marcus completely off the rails. I don't think Marcus was really prepared for a rejection from Saya. He probably didn't even know how she was going to react to him confessing his love for her, but did it anyway. His journaling after Saya lets him down comes across as very uncertain and confused. He's trying desperately to analyze his feelings and come up with a reason why he's feeling them, but struggles to rationalize or figure out a logical explanation for how he's feeling. I think that's what the imagery of him floating up through the ceiling of the school into the world above was trying to communicate. That he's literally drifting away and getting a glimpse of the world outside his own and believing that he's actually better off hiding from it. Marcus getting lost in his own world from the guilt of losing Maria and Saya causes him to project that onto Willie. He totally flips out on him for pretty much no reason. Was it the cheap drugs? Was it his insecurities? Was it some other third thing? If you really want my opinion as to why Marcus freaks out as hard as he does, I think he was just mad at Willie for what he said to Saya, so he comes up with more reasons to hate him, even if he doesn't really believe them. You know how people on Twitter just hate Mr. Beast, so they find literally any possible reason to hate him even more, even if they have to stretch as far as Jake in that maze in order to confirm their own bias against him? It's kind of like that. Marcus's continual habit to drive away his friends is only exacerbated by Petra. Petra's the one that put the idea that Maria was killed by Saya in his head, leading to even more paranoia and even more contention between him and Saya. The insurmountable heap of trouble that he gets himself into reaches its zenith by the time he's forced to kill Victor behind his back. Even compared to everything Marcus has done to dig himself into this hole, this feels like his lowest point. Shooting Victor in the back of the head is a pretty lame move, especially considering that he probably would have been fine if he just ignored Victor. It's shown many times that Master Lin hates it when students tattle to him. So if Victor came to Master Lin to tell him about everything that happened to Lex, Victor probably would have been punished harder than Marcus. And that's ignoring the fact that Master Lin already knows what happened to Lex. Obviously Marcus and Victor don't know that, but I think it's really interesting how Marcus just keeps making the worst possible decisions throughout this whole book. It's like a train wreck, you just can't look away. It's a different kind of train wreck than in Volume 2, where it's mostly secondhand embarrassment, which I don't find nearly as entertaining as Marcus being pushed to do worse and worse things as a result of him doing worse and worse things. Marcus may be the focus of this volume, but there's still stuff I want to talk about for the other characters. This was the series' introduction to Petra. Petra feels like a very different character in Volume 3 than the one we see going forward, especially after what she does to Billy in the next volume and the aftermath of that. But for this volume specifically, I think Petra works very well as a new voice to play off of Marcus. She's clearly a lot more mellow than Saya, but not as wise or mature as Maria. This was really just the introduction of her character, so we don't really see her true colors until the next volume, so that's all I really wanted to say about her. Willie is interesting because looking at this scene with him talking on the phone with Marcus in issue 14 from the perspective of Willie, he probably thinks Marcus is obsessing over Maria and doesn't understand why he can't just accept that she's gone and try and move on. I don't think it was a bad or ill-intentioned decision to confess his love for Saya right before Marcus did. It just ended up being the thing that split them apart. But Marcus is definitely overreacting and making a bigger deal out of it than he should. All I'm saying is that we here at Biggie Bobo Studios stan Willie, and you're just gonna have to accept that.
I am a nightmare walking, psychopath talking, king of my jungle, just a gangster star.
I sure hope things work out well for old Willie boy over here. One thing that's always kind of bugged me is that Saya didn't seem to care about Maria's disappearance at all. I feel like she should be intuitive enough to know that there was some foul play involved with this. I mean, we do learn later on that she knew Maria was alive, but we're never told how or when she found this out. It just kind of leaves Marcus coming across as unfairly irrational while Saya remains cool as a cucumber, even though she should be just as skeptical of this whole insane situation. That's kind of all there is to say about the characters specific to this volume. There wasn't much to say because, again, it was very focused on Marcus. So let's move on to the art. But first, a word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Honey. I'm just kidding, no it's not. Let's talk about Wes Craig now.
This job is a total joke. Who the f are you?
I think Wes Craig's art for Deadly Class is really, really good. At the beginning of the series, it was very well composed and had a lot of creative paneling, but ultimately left a lot to be desired when it came to the faces. I think Wes Craig's faces still need some work by this time in the series, but only after a dozen or so issues, Wes Craig has very noticeably improved. The rate of change that Wes's art goes through is actually really impressive. Like, he was great to begin with, but by volume 3, it became undeniable that he was really one of the greatest. Just look at issue 12 when Maria and Marcus are being chased by braided mustache motorcycle guy. Maria's standing on this bridge in front of a burning car, aura farming her little heart out, waiting for Chico's brother to ride in on his motorcycle. The sound of his motorcycle is represented by an onomatopoeia of just a bunch of white V's. But as the panels go on, the sound of the engine gets louder, so the V's get bigger as well as more defined. By the time Chico's brother comes into view, the V's have pretty much become a zigzagging line across the whole page, until the V's get so loud that they cover the entire background and envelop their surroundings completely, as if the sound of the engine faded into white noise overshadowed by each other's rage. This series is so freaking sick. This huge jagged line gives the page so much energy. It was such a clever way to integrate the onomatopoeias of all things into the storytelling. There's a part in issue 15 where Marcus trips on mushrooms, and the sudden shift in style is so cool. I'm a big sucker for artists who can change their style on a dime. That's why I love the first issues of Keys to the Kingdom so much. Normally, Marcus's ramblings are an important part of understanding him on an emotional level, as well as give an explanation for his actions, but this part I honestly think was kind of unnecessary as much as I loved the art in it. We've already had so many journal entries in this volume, so one more that doesn't even make any sense kind of killed the pacing of this issue for me. I know it communicates something.
Well, I don't know what that peanut or that fellow over there is saying, but
I don't know. I think it could have been left out. Again, despite how much I loved the visuals for it. Wait, we're supposed to be talking about Wes Craig. Yeah, Wes Craig rocks, and there's honestly not much more for me to say about it. I've always said how much I loved his covers, but I've never really gone in depth as to why, so I'm gonna go over all the covers for this volume and rate them out of 10. First up is issue 12. Issue 12 is just okay, honestly. It's composed really nicely. It, like all Wes Craig covers, leads the eye well from the logo to the bottom. I don't like giving praise to a cover that leads the eye because I think a lot of artists put too much importance on that. I remember watching a video of this artist reacting to manga art or something stupid like that, and the only thing he ever mentioned was how the art leads the eye. I think it's just a really subjective way of critiquing art. There's a lot of elements and principles of design other than just how well it leads the viewer's eye. Anyway, I think this cover's symbolism is pretty on the nose. The wolves represent the bad guys that are chasing them, and Maria is falling away from Marcus because Maria gets captured at the end of the issue. I think this one could have been way better, especially since this is one of my favorite issues in the entire series. It's a 5 out of 10. Issue 13 is actually one of my favorites. This one is so simple, but so effective. I think it was a great choice to put Maria on this cover since she was a big focus for this issue, and it's the last time we see her for a pretty long while. But just looking at it at face value, this cover is just beautiful. It's metallic and monochrome, and the repetitive dots on Maria's face gives the whole thing a sense of flow and rhythm to it. And look guys, it's leading my eye. It's totally freaking leading my eye right now, chat. And then this line, it's making me look down. It's leading my eye down.
It's such a long way down.
This is a 9 out of 10, dude. I love this one. Issue 14 isn't nearly as iconic to me, but it still has really rad colors and interesting composition. Comic book covers rarely have a focal point that's so far away from the title of the series, but I think that communicates the abysmally low point that Marcus faces in this issue. The fact that everything is so crooked also helps with that. It's not a standout among Wes's covers, but it still gets the job done. 7 out of 10. Now here's a really good use of simplicity. Issue 15 is another pretty classic one for me. Talk about negative space, bro. I love how Saya's skin is the same color as the background, relying on her tattoos and gloves to reveal her super striking and dynamic pose. Saya isn't that important to this issue, but another cover communicating Marcus's descent into delusion would kind of be reiterating the last cover, so I'm cool with giving the spotlight to Saya on this one. 8 out of 10. Issue 16 is pretty good. I like the symbolism here, being that this tight friend group was slowly corroded away by external forces, but that's just it. Drugs certainly didn't help the situation, but based on this cover, you'd think it was the sole reason. I also think another color would have really elevated this one. I like Wes's limited use of colors on his covers, but I think this one would pop way harder if there was something more. 6 out of 10. Since I thought of rating the covers only just now, let's go through the covers of Volume 1 and 7. Deadly Class issue 1 has an okay cover. I like the composition. I like how everyone is at different heights. That makes it feel a lot more dynamic. But I just think the choice of characters is really strange. Like, why is Maria so far away? Victor is here for some reason, even though his first appearance isn't until the next issue. And Petra's here even though her first appearance isn't until issue 14. And who the fluff are these guys? Is this Lex? Why does he have like football face paint on? I think this is the guy that was with everyone when Marcus was first introduced to the school, but I don't even know if this character has a name. And why is his tie so thin? I'm pretty sure this guy back here is Kendall, but again, why is he here? Kendall is not gonna matter at all until the 4th volume. And then there's the skeleton at the bottom here. It's just like, bro. I don't know, dude. There's variant covers that are way better than this one. I'm sorry, it's like a 4, honestly. Issue 2 is way better than the first. This one actually has interesting use of color and repeating shape. I don't understand why Lex is given more significant space than Saya, but whatever. 7 out of 10. Oh, this one slaps. Issue 3 is interesting because it's a portrayal of something that actually happens in the issue, which Wes often doesn't do. He typically sticks with symbolism and abstract representation, but I think this was a pretty cool moment to make the cover. This is really the moment when Marcus and Willie began to trust each other and form one of the most important friendships in Marcus's life, on top of being a very exciting action shot. I love how far up Marcus and Willie are placed. All the empty space below them really sells what an adrenalizing moment this is. Helped also by how crooked everything is again. It's kind of like the opposite of issue 14's cover. 8 out of 10. Issue 4's cover is also really great. Viewing the gang through the rear view mirror really accentuates their facial expressions. Again, the use of crooked lines as well as the psychedelic colors communicates well the tone of this cover. It kind of reminds me of Salvador Dali, the way the background is warped and droopy. This one's another 8. I'm a little conflicted about issue 5's cover. I like this area for sure. It represents Marcus's trip and the overstimulating glamour of Las Vegas, but I don't really see the point in confining it to this circle. I think this cover would be better if it extended to the borders of the frame. I also don't know why this isn't Maria. Saya literally does not appear in this issue, and his love for Saya isn't even explored until the next volume. I really think Chico should be on this cover. It doesn't have to have his face, just so the reveal that he had been following them from the school doesn't get spoiled, but I still think he should have been incorporated somehow. It's like a 6 for me. Issue 6's cover is awesome. This is what I'm talking about. Do I even need to explain myself? Instant 9. And it's only a 9 because it's not as good as the next one we're gonna look at. Okay, moving on to volume 7 with issue 32. This is a 10 out of 10. This is one of my favorite covers in all of comics, not just Deadly Class. There's way more colors than there usually are, making it feel a lot more full than the other covers we've seen. I like the simple use of color in the other covers, but if one cover is going to get coloring more similar to the actual internal pages, it should be this one. Legit one of the coolest covers ever. Issue 33 is another one that I love. The perspective, first of all, is so cool. We got Marcus and Maria on the top with Victor and Brandy on the bottom. It's one of the few times the title isn't at the top. Again, making everything crooked just gives it so much energy and excitement. 8 out of 10. Oh my gosh, volume 7 does not miss. I'm telling you, this one is goated. We go back to the classic minimalist colors, but this time the cover's use of contrast is so cool. Victor being red with the background being white, and then you got Marcus being white with the background being red, representing the opposing nature of these characters. If the fact that they're killing each other didn't convince you, even more energy and movement than the last two somehow. Another 10 out of 10 easily. Issue 35's cover is really interesting when put next to the previous 3. This one is so much more calm and melancholic than the other ones from this volume. I love how the title is put on its side, allowing it to be bigger than it usually is. Like issue 15, it has excellent use of negative space. I mean, the imagery alone makes this one stand out super hard, but the unconventional composition makes this one truly special. 9 out of 10. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Volume 3 is getting a 4 out of 5 stars. If I had to give a reason why it misses that 5th star, it would be that the first issue is just so awesome, but after that it slows down super hard, which is fine. I like focusing on Marcus and his relationships, but the fact that this volume has such a nuclear bomb of an opening and then pretty much having no action until the very end makes this one's structure a little bit off for me. Plus, I think Rick is over-relying on Marcus's journaling to clue us in on this character. It can get a little tedious reading such long crawls of text that feel so self-defeating and depressive. I still love this volume, but it falls just short of perfection, unlike Volume 1 and 7. Stay tuned for another exciting review of this great series. Maybe. We'll see.